Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Today I will be discussing about government intervention in the labour market, focusing on minimum wage policy in Malaysia. In theory, wages are determined by supply and demand. However, in reality, this does not always work well, especially for low-skilled workers. Many workers have weak bargaining power, limited job choices, and also face rising living costs. As a result, market wages may not be enough to meet the basic living needs. To address this issue, the Malaysian government introduced the minimum wage policy to protect low-income workers and reduce income inequality. In recent years, this policy has been strengthened through the progressive wage policy, which links wage growth with skills and productivity. In this presentation, I will explain the economic rationale, the impacts on public finance, the impacts on society, and finally conclude with the overall implication of this policy. First, let us look at the economic rationale. In a perfectly competitive market, wages should reflect productivity. However, in reality, especially for low-skilled workers, labour markets often experience problems such as weak bargaining power, imperfect competition, and information asymmetry. So this issue can cause wages to remain too low, even when the cost of living continues to rise. So in Malaysia, this problem became more serious as urban living costs are increased, putting pressure on low-income households. Because of this government intervention became necessary. So this is the table of minimum wage policy in Malaysia, and also a chart that shows a positive trend for the minimum wage policies. Between 2021 and 2025, Malaysia gradually adjusted its minimum wage policy. In 2021, wage levels were maintained to help business recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2022, the minimum wage was increased to 1,500 nationwide to reduce wage inequality and protect workers' purchasing power. So, in 2023, the focus shifted to enforcement to ensure employers comply with the law. So, after that, in 2024, the government introduced the progressive wage policy, which encouraged wage increases based on skills and also productivity rather than forcing all firms to raise wage in a sudden. Finally, in 2025, the minimum wage was raised to 1,700 to reflect rising living costs. So, in economic, minimum wage acts as a price floor, preventing workers from being underpaid. So, at the same time, the progressive wage approach helped to reduce the risk of job losses by linking wages to productivity growth. Okay, next, let us look at the impact on public finance. One key advantage of minimum wage policy is it does not require the government to directly pay workers. So, employers bear the main cost, which makes this policy relatively cost efficient for the government. However, there are still indirect fiscal costs. Under the progressive wage policy, the government provides wage incentives and training support, especially for small and medium enterprise. This support involves short-term government spending, but they are viewed as investment in human capital rather than permanent subsidies. So, in the long run, higher wages can actually improve the government finances. When workers earn more, they spend more and pay more taxes. At the same time, their dependence on welfare and financial aid also decrease. So, this will help to reduce future government expenditure. Okay, but the fiscal sustainability remains important. So, if wage incentives are spent too widely without productivity gains, government spending could rise significantly. Therefore, Malaysia has adopted a gradual and targeted approach to balance social support with fiscal responsibility. Now, let us look at the social impact on society. Minimum wage policy has helped improve the living standard of low-income workers. With higher income, workers can better afford basic needs such as food, housing, transportation, and also utilities. So this can reduce the financial stress and improve the overall quality of life. So higher and more stable income also leads to better health outcomes and allows family to invest more in their children's education. Over the time, this helps reduce the intergenerational poverty and supports long-term human capital development. However, there are also social trade-offs. Some small and labor-intensive business may face higher operating costs, which could lead to the higher prices or slower hiring. In most cases, however, firms adjust through productivity improvements rather than job cuts. So, the progressive wage policy further strengthens social outcomes by encourage skill development, career progression, and also better job mobility. So, this helps create a more skilled workforce and supports inclusive economic growth. To conclude, government intervention through minimum wage and progressive wage policies plays an important role in correcting labour market failures and also protecting low-income workers. By combining wage increase with skills development and productivity measures, Malaysia has managed to balance social equity with economic efficiency. Overall, the well-designed wage policies contribute to a higher living standards, stronger social stability, and sustainable economic growth, while the remaining physically manageable. With continuous evaluation and targeted implementation, these policies can continue to support Malaysia's journey toward becoming a high-income nation. That's all from me. Thank you.